Wait, this famous singer thought he was about to humiliate her. A packed auditorium, bright lights, millions watching live. A quiet 16-year-old black girl stands frozen on stage. No music, no backup, no second chance. The world-famous singer beside her smirks and steps away from the microphone. "Why don't you sing this part alone?" he says. The crowd laughs nervously. Because everyone knows this song. It has ruined careers. Even professionals avoid it. He chose it on purpose. He expected her to crack, to forget the words, to embarrass herself in front of the world. But what happened next changed everything. No instruments, no help. She closes her eyes and sings. And within seconds, the room shifts. Because the notes she hits next are notes he never could. Stay till the end. Because this moment didn't just expose a singer. It created a voice the world could no longer ignore. Wait. The entire auditorium went silent. Not the polite kind of silence, but the kind that presses against your ears. Hundreds of people sat frozen in their seats, their attention locked onto one small figure, standing alone at the center of a massive, glowing stage. No music played. No band prepared to help her. No backup singers stepped forward. Just one girl, and a spotlight that felt far too heavy. Everyone could sense it. This moment wasn't planned. This wasn't how the performance was supposed to go. The girl's name was Amara Johnson, a quiet 16-year-old black girl from a small neighborhood choir. She wasn't famous. She didn't have a manager or a social media following with millions of fans. Singing was simply something she loved, something that helped her escape when life felt overwhelming. She had been invited to a nationally televised charity music event meant to inspire young talent. The concept was simple. Rising singers would perform alongside established stars, learning from them and sharing the spotlight. That was the promise. But promises don't always survive ego. Standing beside Amara was Victor Hale, a global music icon with platinum records, sold-out tours, and a reputation that made people uneasy. His voice was legendary, but so was his arrogance. He had a habit of reminding everyone exactly how powerful he was, especially those beneath him. As the cameras rolled and the crowd waited, Victor glanced at Amara. A slow smirk spread across his face. Then he took a step back. The band paused. Victor leaned toward the microphone and said casually, "Why don't you sing this part alone?" A few people laughed. Not because it was funny, but because they didn't know what else to do. The judges exchanged confused looks. The producers froze behind the cameras, and Amara's heart dropped straight into her chest. This wasn't mentorship. This wasn't kindness. This was humiliation, broadcast live. The song Victor had chosen was infamous in the music world. Its range was brutal. Its high notes had ended careers. Even experienced vocalists avoided performing it live without support. Victor knew that. He had rehearsed his own part carefully, cutting difficult notes, lowering keys, protecting his image. But now, he had placed the hardest section directly onto Amara's shoulders. Alone. Amara's hands began to tremble. She swallowed hard, staring out at the crowd that suddenly felt 1,000 miles away. Her mind raced. What if I crack? What if I forget the words? What if everyone was right about me? Victor folded his arms, watching closely. He expected embarrassment. He expected excuses. He expected failure. What he did not expect was that this moment, meant to break her, was about to change everything. Amara didn't come from privilege or fame. She came from struggle, the quiet kind no one applauds. Her mornings often began before sunrise, helping her mother get ready for another long shift at the hospital. Her mother worked double shifts whenever she could, not because she wanted to, but because bills didn't care about exhaustion. Amara learned early how to be independent, how to stay quiet, and how not to ask for too much. Her father had passed away years earlier, leaving behind memories that felt heavier than words. Music became the only place where Amara felt close to him again. When she sang, she felt understood. When she sang, the world made sense. She sang in church every Sunday, standing in the back of the choir, never asking for a solo. At home, she sang softly in her room, careful not to disturb her tired mother. On the bus, with headphones in, she hummed under her breath, never loud enough for anyone to notice. Because Amara had learned something early in life. Don't take up too much space. When the invitation arrived for the charity music event, she thought it was a mistake. She reread the email 3 times before believing it was real. For a moment, hope crept in, bright and terrifying. But hope didn't last long. People around her tried to protect her with warnings that sounded like advice. Just be grateful you're there. Don't embarrass yourself on TV. Don't stand out too much. No one said you belong there. No one said your voice matters. They said things that carried hidden meaning, things Amara had heard her entire life. Stay small. Be careful. Know your place. And then there was Victor Hale. Everyone in the industry knew his reputation. He was brilliant but ruthless. If he respected you, he could lift your career overnight. If he didn't, he made sure you never forgot it. Young performers whispered stories about him backstage, about how he tested them, pushed them too far, laughed when they broke under pressure. To Victor, talent wasn't enough. Submission mattered more. As Amara stood on stage now, bright lights burning her eyes, those stories echoed in her head. Her chest felt tight. Her palms were slick with sweat. She thought of every audition she didn't pass, every teacher who overlooked her, every moment someone assumed she was only there by accident. Maybe they're right, she thought. Maybe I don't belong. Victor crossed his arms, watching her closely. There was no kindness in his eyes, only curiosity, like someone waiting to see how badly something would fall apart. He tilted his head and smiled. Go on, he said calmly into the microphone. Show us what you've got. And in that moment, Amara realized something painful and powerful. No one was going to save her. If she was going to be heard, she would have to do it herself. The music cue never came. Seconds passed. Then more. The band remained still. The stage lights hummed softly, and the silence grew heavier with every heartbeat. Amara stood frozen, waiting for a signal that never arrived. That's when she realized she was truly alone. No melody to guide her, no rhythm to lean on, nothing to hide behind. So Amara made a decision. She took a slow breath, closed her eyes, and sang. No instruments, no backing track, just her voice, raw and unprotected. At first, it was barely more than a whisper. Soft, gentle, almost fragile. The kind of voice that sounded like it might break if pushed too far. A few people in the crowd leaned forward, curious but uncertain. Others looked away, already uncomfortable, bracing themselves for what they believed was about to be painful. This was the moment everyone expected her to fall apart. Then it happened. Amara reached the first high note, and she hit it perfectly. The sound was clear, steady, fearless. A visible ripple moved through the auditorium. Conversations stopped mid-whisper. Someone in the front row gasped. The judges' expressions changed instantly, from doubt to disbelief. The room shifted. With each line, Amara's voice grew stronger. The softness didn't disappear, it evolved. It became controlled, confident, and powerful. She climbed through the melody with precision, gliding through vocal runs that made even seasoned professionals nervous. These were notes that demanded absolute control. Notes that punished hesitation. Notes Victor Hale had avoided his entire career. Whispers spread across the audience like electricity. Is she really doing this? Listen to her control. That's impossible. Judges sat upright, no longer hiding their reactions. Phones quietly rose into the air as people realized they were witnessing something unforgettable. Amara opened her eyes. She no longer saw the crowd. She no longer saw Victor. She saw every late night she'd sung alone in her room. Every moment she'd been told to stay quiet. Every time she'd swallowed her fear instead of her dreams. And then she approached it. The impossible note. A note so high and so demanding that Victor himself had once laughed during an interview and said, "I'll never sing that live." Amara didn't hesitate. She reached for it and hit it. Not sharp, not shaky. Perfect. But she didn't stop there. She held the note, steady and unwavering, letting it fill every corner of the auditorium. The sound rang through the space, powerful and clean, refusing to fade. The crowd exploded. People jumped to their feet. Applause crashed like thunder. Shouts echoed from the balconies. Some stood with their hands over their mouths, unable to believe what they had just heard. The camera cut to Victor. His smile was gone. His arms slowly dropped to his sides. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in disbelief. For the first time in his career, he wasn't the most impressive voice on stage. Amara was. And in that moment, everything changed. The final note hung in the air. For a brief moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then the silence shattered. The auditorium exploded with applause, so loud it felt physical. People leapt to their feet, as if pulled by the same invisible force. Cheers echoed from every corner. Some audience members wiped tears from their eyes. Others shouted her name. Amara! Amara! Even though many had only learned it seconds earlier. It was a standing ovation. Amara stood still, stunned, her chest rising and falling as she tried to understand what had just happened. She had walked onto that stage afraid, unsure if her voice even belonged there. Now the entire room was rising for her. Victor Hale didn't move. He stood frozen where he was, eyes locked on the girl who had just done the impossible. His face was tight, his jaw clenched so hard it looked like it hurt. The cameras found him instantly, zooming in, capturing every crack in his confidence. Slowly, Victor walked back toward the microphone. But something was different. The swagger was gone. The smile was forced. The power he was used to commanding had slipped through his fingers. He cleared his throat, preparing to speak, but the applause refused to die down. This was supposed to be his moment of control. Instead, it was his exposure. He had tried to embarrass her, tried to remind everyone who held the power, tried to prove she didn't belong on that stage. But the only thing revealed that night was how small his confidence truly was. One of the judges leaned forward, eyes shining. That, they said slowly, was one of the most powerful vocal performances I've ever heard by anyone at any age. Another judge nodded, adding, "You didn't just sing notes. You told a story, and every person in this room felt it." The crowd roared again. Victor forced a laugh, shaking his head as if the moment amused him. "Beginner's luck," he muttered into the microphone. The words fell flat. No one laughed. No one clapped. The audience wasn't buying it, and neither were the cameras capturing every second of his discomfort. Within hours, the clip spread across social media like wildfire. Millions watched the moment again and again. The famous singer stepping back, the young girl standing alone, and the voice that changed everything. Headlines followed. Arrogance meets talent. Teen outshines music icon. The moment mockery backfired. For the first time in his career, Victor Hale was trending, but not for his voice, not for his music, not for his success. He was trending for being outperformed by the very person he tried to silence. And the world was watching. That night didn't just end a performance. It rewrote Amara's life. By the time she left the stage, her name was already spreading far beyond the auditorium. Producers replayed the footage backstage in stunned silence. Journalists rushed to write headlines before the moment cooled. What had started as an attempt to humiliate a quiet teenager had become one of the most unforgettable live performances in recent memory. Within days, record labels reached out, not with doubt, but with respect. Vocal coaches from around the world analyzed her performance, praising her control, her breath support, and her emotional depth. Many said the same thing. You can't teach that kind of soul. But the most powerful reaction came from somewhere else entirely. Young girls, especially black girls, saw themselves in Amara. They saw a girl who looked like them, who had been underestimated, who stood alone under pressure and didn't break. Social media filled with messages from girls saying they had never believed their voices mattered until that moment. Amara hadn't planned to become a symbol. She simply refused to disappear. Weeks later, she was invited back to the same stage. This time, the announcement was different. She wasn't listed as a guest or supporting performer. She was the headliner. The crowd greeted her with cheers before she even sang a note. Victor Hale, meanwhile, released a short public apology. It was carefully worded, polished, professional, but it felt empty. The damage had already been done, not just to his image, but to the illusion of untouchable authority he once carried. People no longer saw him as the voice that defined the stage. They saw the moment he lost it. Amara never responded with anger or bitterness. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke louder than any argument ever could. When reporters asked her how it felt to outshine a legend, she smiled softly and said, "I didn't sing to prove anyone wrong. I sang because my voice deserved to be heard." Those words traveled just as far as her performance. They became her message. Amara wasn't just the girl who hit impossible notes. She wasn't just a viral moment or a trending clip. She became proof. Proof that talent doesn't need permission. Proof that confidence can be quiet and still powerful. Proof that being underestimated doesn't mean being unworthy. She showed the world what happens when opportunity meets courage, and when someone meant to be mocked chooses to stand tall instead. Because sometimes the voices that shake the room aren't the loudest ones. Sometimes the quietest voices carry the strongest power. Stories like this remind us of something powerful. That talent doesn't need permission. That confidence doesn't have to be loud. And that sometimes the people meant to be silenced are the ones who change everything. If this story inspired you even a little, make sure to like this video. It helps more people hear stories that matter. And subscribe to the channel for more real, emotional, and unforgettable stories just like this. Because the next voice the world underestimates might be closer than you think. See you in the next One Microphone Sparkles.